Welcome back to the deep dive. I have to be honest with you right off the bat. I spent this morning waging a small war in my kitchen.
Oh, no. Let me guess. The return of the ants.
The return of the ants, yeah. I put a singular drop of honey in my tea, a tiny bit spilled on the counter, and 20 minutes later it was like a highway had opened up.
Yeah.
I was reaching for the spray, I was wiping them up. Usually when I think about ants, my only thought is, how do I make them go away?
That is the standard human operating procedure. They're pests. They invade our space.
Yeah.
But today, we are going to try to flip that script completely.
Which is going to be a hard sell for me right now, but I'm listening.
Well, we're looking at a source today that suggests your reaction, the kill it with fire reaction, is actually missed opportunity. We are diving into a talk by John Boone titled, Observe the Ant, Go See Ants and Become Wise.
Go see ants and become wise. It sounds a bit like a fortune cookie, but I know Boone is pulling from some pretty serious historical weight here.
He is. He's anchoring this whole discussion in the biblical book of Proverbs, specifically the writings attributed to Solomon. Now, regardless of where you stand on theology, Solomon is, historically framed as the wisest man of his time.
People traveled just to hear him speak.
Kind of like kings and queens, yeah.
Yeah.
And his advice to the sluggard, which is basically a lazy person, wasn't go get a degree or invest in crypto.
It was look at the bugs.
Exactly. Go to the ant, you sluggard. Consider her ways and be wise.
So our mission today is to figure out why. We're going to unpack the biology, which I've looked at, and it is honestly way more intense than I expected.
Oh, for sure.
And then we're going to connect it to the life lessons Boone extracts from these little creatures. We're asking the big question. Can staring at an anthill actually change how we approach our work, our community, and even our rest?
I think it might. But before we even get to the biology, we have to start with the mindset Boone establishes right at the start. He draws a really interesting line between two concepts, pondering and wandering.
Yeah, I like this distinction because in my head, they're just two ways of walking around thinking about stuff. But Boone says they are opposites.
Total opposites. He argues that wandering is aimless. It's drifting. When you wander, whether that's physically or mentally, you aren't focused. And because you aren't focused, Boone argues you inevitably move further away from truth.
You're just lost in the noise.
Exactly.
That feels very relevant to the modern world. You pick up your phone to check the weather, and 45 minutes later you're watching videos of someone power washing a driveway. That's wandering.
That's the perfect example. You've drifted. Now, contrast that with pondering. Boone defines pondering as thinking deeply, dwelling on a subject, and really letting it become part of you. He says that pondering moves you closer to the truth.
So he's challenging us today not just to glance at the ant, but to ponder it, to really study it.
Until we get the lesson.
Yeah. Okay, I am ready to ponder. Let's look at the creature itself. Because when I look at an ant, I see a black speck. I don't see a complex biological machine. But the stats Boone pulls out are staggering.
They really are. Let's start with navigation. We take GPS for granted, right?
Yeah.
If I need to go to the grocery store 5 miles away, I might still turn on Waze just to check traffic.
Oh, I'm guilty. Absolutely.
So Boone points out that an ant can travel the equivalent of 20 miles from its home, relative to its size, of course, and find its way back.
Without a compass, without a map?
No satellite connection, nothing.
20 miles. I want to put that in perspective. If I walked 20 miles in a random direction into the woods without my phone, I'm not making it back for dinner. I'm probably appearing on the evening news.
And you definitely wouldn't walk in a straight line. Boone notes that scientists observe ants traveling in these incredibly orderly lines. They are mission-driven. They don't meander.
They know exactly where they're going. But they aren't just robots, right? There was this anecdote in the source that just cracked me up about their attitude.
The squaring up moment.
Yes. Boone talks about getting down on the ground to look at an ant closely. And instead of running away, the ant sits up on its hindquarters.
It challenges you.
It literally squares up to a giant, here is this human being millions of times its size, and the ant is like, you want a piece of me? Let's go.
It's totally fearless. And it illustrates a key point in the source. Ants aren't afraid. They know their power. They know their capabilities. And frankly, they have reasons to be confident.
Okay, we have to talk about the strength.
The lifting capacity. It's absurd.
Yeah.
The source notes they can lift 10 to 20 times their own body weight.
I was trying to contextualize that this morning. I weigh. Well, never mind what I weigh. But if I could lift 20 times my body weight, I'm picking up a Honda Civic.
You're in superhero territory.
Totally.
It is.
Yeah.
But here is the interesting twist, and this is where Boone pivots from biology to sociology. Usually when we see that kind of power and organization, like a wolf pack or even a human corporation, there is a clear leader.
Someone's barking orders.
Exactly, there's a hierarchy.
Well, sure, you have the queen, right? I always assumed the queen ant was the CEO, sitting in the middle of the hill with a clipboard giving performance reviews.
And that is the biggest misconception. Boone points out that the ant has no captain, overseer, or ruler. The queen is the mother. She's crucial for reproduction, obviously, but she isn't managing the workforce.
So she's not telling the workers which seed to pick up.
Nope. The worker ants are entirely self-motivated.
Wait, so how does anything get done? If I didn't have a deadline or a boss checking in, I might not get much done. You're saying they just work.
They just work. They operate on instinctual diligence. Boone emphasizes that they gather their food in the harvest in the summer to prepare for winter. They don't need a manager standing over them saying, hey, winter's coming, get moving.
They just do it because it needs to be done. And that's the contrast with the human sluggard. Right?
Precisely. Boone uses this vivid, slightly terrifying image. If you are slumbering, if you're lazy, if you're waiting for someone else to drive you, poverty will come upon you like a burglar.
Like a burglar. Wow, that's visceral.
It is. It means it's unexpected. It sneaks up on you. A burglar doesn't make an appointment. Poverty or failure sneaks in because you weren't preparing while the sun was shining.
And the ant never has that problem.
The ant never stops preparing.
That's a heavy opener. Be self-motivated or get robbed by life. But I want to shift gears to something visual because this next part of the source material honestly blew my mind. The colored water experiment.
Oh, this is fascinating science. It's the ultimate you are what you eat demonstration.
Break it down for us, because this sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie.
Okay, so observers gave ants water mixed with sugar, which they love, but they added different food colorings to the water. Now, you have to remember, ants have translucent abdomens.
So you can see right through them.
Their stomachs are essentially see-through. You can see the cargo inside. The ant that drank the green sugar water turned bright green. The red turned red. The yellow turned yellow.
They were glowing.
Boone describes some of them as literally glowing with the color of what they had consumed. It's like a living lava lamp.
You look at the ant, and you know exactly where it's been and what it's been doing.
But obviously, Boone isn't just giving us a fun science fair project here. He pivots to a really sticky metaphor about consumption.
Right. He says, look, if a simple sugar water can change the physical appearance of an ant, how much more does what we ingest change us?
And he's not talking about calories or carbs. He's talking about culture, information.
What we read, what we watch on TV, who we hang out with.
Exactly. He asks the listener, what color are you glowing? If you're ingesting green water, and let's say green represents negativity, gossip, anger, whatever, eventually that is going to show up in your personality.
You can't hide it.
You become what you consume. He makes a comparison between strawberries and cookies, doesn't he?
He does.
He notes that ants love strawberries. High nutrition, energy for work, good solid fuel. Contrast that with a cookie. It tastes great, sure, high energy for a second, but it's junk.
It's the sugar crash.
It is. It doesn't build the colony.
Yeah.
So the lesson is that we need to be auditing our intake. Are you consuming things that build your spiritual health? Or are you just snacking on junk that leaves you weak?
It really challenges you to look at your Netflix queue or your news feed and ask, is this turning me green?
As you should.
I'm going to be thinking about glowing green ants next time I'm 3 hours deep into a reality TV binge.
It's a question of input versus output. Speaking of output, let's talk about the workforce itself. Because we've been saying he and guys a lot. But the source makes a very specific point about the gender dynamics of the ant.
What a crucial correction, yeah.
The source emphasizes that the vast majority of the ants we see, the soldiers, the heavy lifters, the bridge builders, they are all female.
All of them.
Almost all of them. The workers are female.
So what are the males doing? I feel like I know the answer and I'm not going to be impressed.
Well, not much, not for long. The source notes that while a queen can live up to 30 years, which is an eternity in the insect world, the males, or drones, live about 15 days.
15 days versus 30 years. That is a brutal disparity.
Their biological purpose is singular. They exist to mate during the spring. Once that season is over, they die off. They are essentially genetic couriers.
So the running of the colony, the defense, the gathering.
That's it entirely on the females.
Boone has a specific message based on this, right? It didn't sound like he was just sharing trivia for trivia's sake.
No, not at all. He's making a social point. He directs this to young women specifically.
Mm.
He argues that just like the colony, the human community and the church, in his context, relies heavily on female workers.
He's challenging the idea that a woman's purpose is just to help or support men, the old helpmeet idea.
Exactly. He's saying, look at the ant. The females are the ones holding the structure together, fighting the battles, building the bridges. They have God-given specialties that are indispensable. They aren't sidekicks.
They're the engine.
They are the engine. It's an empowering take. And speaking of roles that all these ladies pull off is just insane.
The bridge building was my favorite. I've seen pictures of this, but I never really thought about the mechanics.
It's altruism in physics form. Boone describes how ants will use their own bodies to span a gap or cross water. They lock legs and jaws, creating a living structure.
And then the other ants just walk across their backs to get to the other side.
Talk about being the support structure. You are literally letting your neighbor walk all over you so the mission can succeed.
It connects back to that idea of community. But they don't just walk, they travel. Did you catch the hitchhiking bit?
Yes, that they hitch rides on cars.
Or people, they use wings during certain phases, or they just stow away to travel up to 50 miles to start a new colony.
Boone connects this to the idea of missionaries traveling to spread a message. It's about expansion.
But the behavior that really caught me off guard was the shepherd ant. I had no idea ants kept pets, or livestock, I guess.
It's a symbiotic relationship, but it looks remarkably like farming. The source explains that ants will herd aphids. The aphids produce a sugary secretion honeydew that the ants eat.
And in return, the ants protect them.
They act as bodyguards. But Boone tells this specific story about a rainstorm that is just beautiful. It honestly made me emotional about bugs.
This is the umbrella story.
It is. He watched ants using leaves as umbrellas to cover the baby aphids, their sheep, during the rain so they wouldn't get washed away.
That is surprisingly tender for an insect that squares up to fight giants.
It implies a level of stewardship. They aren't just consuming resources, they're protecting the source of the resource.
Nurturing the thing that sustains them, it's a lesson in responsibility. Now, with all this bridge building, leaf umbrella holding, heavy lifting, I have to ask the lazy human question, do they ever sleep?
The question of sleep is interesting. Boone says the answer is yes, they sleep, but not like we do. They are masters of the power nap.
The power nap, okay. What's the strategy?
The source states they take about 20 naps a day.
20 naps sounds great. I could get on board with that lifestyle.
But each nap is only a minute or two long. And here's the kicker. They do not go home to sleep.
They sleep at work.
They nap on the job site. Boone describes seeing an ant just stop in the middle of a line, power down for a minute, literally freezing in place, and then wake up and immediately resume work.
That is intensity. That is efficiency on another level.
And Boone uses this to pivot back to the sluggard. He's not saying humans should only sleep 20 minutes a day. He acknowledges we need our 7 or 8 hours. But he's warning against spiritual slumber.
Being asleep at the wheel of your life.
Right. The ant rests to work. It doesn't live to rest. The goal is to stay focused on the purpose. If you're sleeping your life away, you're inviting the burglar.
Okay, we have to move to the finale. We've saved the weirdest, funniest, and honestly most profound part of the source for last. We need to talk about the dead ant.
This is quite a story. It's a perfect intersection of chemistry and social behavior.
First, we have to establish how they know who is who. It's all smell, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Pheromones. Boone makes a pun here that I have to share. He says ants have a GPS, a global positioning system, via scent trails.
Oh, I groaned a little at that one, I won't lie.
It's a classic dad joke. But the point lands. Scents aren't just for maps. They're also for death certificates.
So an ant dies. It doesn't just fall over in a way other ants recognize visually.
No. Visual cues don't matter. The colony knows an ant is dead because after about 2 days of decomposition, the body releases a specific chemical odor, oleic acid.
The dead ant smell.
That's it. When the other ants smell oleic acid, their programming overrides everything else. They pick up the body and carry it to a designated garbage dump pit.
Rational, efficient. But then scientists, being scientists, decided to mess with the system.
They isolated that oleic acid. First, they painted it on a piece of paper. The ants immediately grabbed the paper and tossed it in the dump.
System verify it.
And then they did the unthinkable.
Oh no.
They painted the dead ant smell on a perfectly healthy live ant,
And this ant is kicking, struggling, walking around, clearly alive.
waving its antenna. But the other ants, they didn't care.
Because of the smell.
Because the scent was the only truth that mattered. They picked it up, dragged it to the garbage pit, and threw it in.
Sorry, Bob, you smell dead. You gotta go.
Exactly. And the story gets even better. The live ant tried to climb out. It's like, guys, I'm right here. I'm working. They threw him back in repeatedly. Every time he climbed out, they smelled the death and tossed him back. Boone says the ant finally had to just sit at the bottom of the garbage pit and furiously lick the chemical off itself.
It had to clean itself.
It had to clean itself completely before the colony would let it back into work.
That is a tragic comedy. It's hilarious, but Boone lands a really heavy punchline with this image.
He does. He asks the listener a very direct question. Are you smelling dead despite looking alive?
Oof. That is the question.
It's a metaphor for active faith versus passive existence. You might look the part. You might be walking around, going to the right places, saying the right words. But if your spirit is decaying, if you aren't active, if you aren't contributing, you smell dead to the community.
And the consequence isn't that people are mean to you, it's that you get thrown in the dump.
Metaphorically.
Yeah.
You lose your usefulness, you're sidelined. The challenge Boone leaves us with is to ensure your scent matches your status. If you're alive, act like it. Smell like it.
Don't be the person who has to sit in the pit and clean themselves off because they let their spirit rot. That is such a powerful, slightly gross, but unforgettable image to end on. We've covered a lot of ground today.
We have. From the ant's navigation and that internal drive, the cure for the sluggard, to the you are what you eat principle with the colored water.
We talked about the incredible female workforce building bridges with their own bodies and the shepherding of resources, protecting what sustains you.
And finally, that lingering question of the scent you are giving off. Are you a diligent worker or are you a spiritual sluggard?
I just can't get the image out of my head of that live ant scrubbing itself in the landfill so it can get back to work. It's a hustle we should all aspire to. If you've fallen into a slump, sometimes you just have to sit there, clean yourself off, and climb back out.
It certainly puts our daily complaints into perspective. If an ant can do it, we probably can too.
It does. So here is a final thought for you to ponder. Not wander, but ponder. Boone talked about the ant knowing its purpose so clearly that it doesn't need a captain. What is the one area in your life right now where you are waiting for a captain to tell you what to do when you already know exactly what needs to be done? Maybe it's time to stop waiting for permission and start preparing your summer harvest.
Go observe the ant.
Go observe the ant. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.